Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leanne. I'm the face behind Small Gestures Vintage and Crafts. Welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. This week I dove back into creating and playing and had so much fun. I couldn't just take something that I already had in my stash and upcycle it. No, I had to create from scratch, and I couldn't create just one. I had to do 3 of each. Go figure. But I had so much fun, so much fun. Seriously, I was so excited when I finished one project in particular. I think you might know which one it is. If there is something on this week's video that you like, please check out my website, sgvintagecrafts.com. They are listed there under Upcycled Decor. If there's something that you like, snatch it up. They are all listed on my website, but they will only be for the next week or so until I take them down to my new booth, part of Angry Mama's Antiques and Interiors in Dahlonega, Georgia. I'm super happy to be part of the Angry Mama's family. Dahlonega, if you have never been there, it's such an incredible, it's like an iconic little Hallmark town. They've actually, I think, filmed a couple of Hallmark movies in Dahlonega around the downtown and the city courthouse. It's such a cute little place. If you ever find yourself in North Georgia, I would strongly encourage you to pay it a visit, especially near the holiday season. So if you're ready to have some fun with me and see what I create, stick around and let's do it. For my first project this week, I am starting out with some scrap 2x4s that I had in my stash, and just like that, they are now cut into 5, 7, and 9-inch lengths, and they have been sanded smooth, and we're going to stain them with some liquid patina. This is DIY's Dark and Decrepit, and when I had to stain a bunch of wood for my new booth, and I forgot just how stinky oil-based stain was, so I love using Dark and Decrepit because it doesn't have that odor and it gives you a nice, deep, dark, beautiful stain. If you don't want it this dark, you could put it on and then wipe it right back, and it would definitely lighten it up a little bit. My DIY and my IOD products I get from my friend Heather at Create Your Own Cozy, and I will put an affiliate link in the box below. If you do not already have a stockist for DIY and IOD, please reach out to Heather. Like I said, it is an affiliate link, so she gives me a little thank you if you use that link. It changes your price in no way, shape, or form, but it's just a little thank you from Heather to me and supports both of our little small businesses. So after the Dark and Decrepit is all dry, then I'm coming in to paint them. And this is Crinoline by DIY. It was a little too yellow for me, so I wanted to add some white swan to it. Now, I typically, when I make block pumpkins, I usually use my Cricut. And I think I was in that mode. This is like what I have done in the past. I stain them and then I paint them. And so it did not dawn on me until much later in the process that I was not doing this with these guys. They were going to be a little different. So bear with me as I do a couple of extra steps here, but I get the paint mixed to the color that I like, and then I put on 2 coats of paint on all 3 of these blocks, started to sand them down to distress them a little bit, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I want to do molds on them. So I could have just applied the molds after I stained them and then painted them both together, but alas, it did not work out that way. So I went ahead and dusted this whole mold with cornstarch, and I came in with my DOS air dry clay, and I went ahead and did castings for everything in here because I knew I wanted to put molds on each of these 4 blocks. 3 blocks. Oh my gosh. After I scraped off all the excess clay, then I just flipped them over and really just kind of let gravity work to pull the molds out. And trust me, If you forget the cornstarch step, they will not come out this easily. Titebond Quick and Thick is my go-to adhesive for adhering castings down to surfaces, especially this one because it is going to wrap around the side, but you always want to make sure that you work your glue all the way out to the edges so they're adhered down and not lifting up at all, especially during the drying process. There was a little crack on the back side right here that you can see between the center of the flower and the petals, and I didn't want that to get worse as it dried, so I rolled out a really skinny piece of clay and then just kind of pushed it in there to help fill that in, and then went over it with a wet brush and my little micro applicator just to kind of smush it all together. So I mixed up some more paint. The castings have been sitting for probably 15 minutes or so, just so the glue kind of sets up. They are obviously still wet, so I am just going in with a gentle brush, with a gentle hand, and painting the castings while they are still wet. I prefer to do this. I find that it causes them to not dry so fast and really reduces the cracking that you get. I did want to distress the blocks a little bit more, so I used a combination of some sanding and some wet distressing. DIY paint can be wet distressed, and I like using the combination of the two. It gives you a really super smooth finish. So I distressed them a little bit and then topped them with some DIY Big Top. And then I have this spindle that I cut down into 3 lengths. Those are going to be our little pumpkin stems. So I'm going to add some dark wax to these pumpkins, but I put tape on the top so I would not wax the top because I wanted to do that the very last step. So I'm just coming in with the dark wax by DIY, and I love when I wipe it back because IOD molds are incredible for the detail, and man, they just really pop when you wipe this wax back. I mean, look at that. It's just, they're just incredible. I love how detailed they are, and that dark wax just really makes everything pop in that mold. Look at that. So I'm ready to attach the pumpkin stems, and if you know me, you know that I do not like to just glue stuff on the top. So I am going to drill some holes, and we're going to attach these little pumpkin stems with some double-ended wood screws. So I just drill a little hole into the spindle, the part of the spindle, and then do the same thing on the block of wood. One end of the screw gets screwed into the wooden block, and the other end I actually do a little dab of glue on the screw, just so it's just for a little extra precaution. And then I just screw the little spindle part on the top, and it cinches down good and tight, and it's not going to go anywhere. Now it's time to embellish these, so I'm just pulling out some ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby last year and making a little bow, and then we're just going to keep it simple for the top of these, or so I'm thinking at this point. I'm just going to make a little bow and secure it with twine. So I have some rusty crafting wire that I like to use, and I just cut off a good length and then kind of wrapped it around the base of the little spindle, and then just curled it around a paintbrush just to make little tendrils. And on this big one I did that 4 times, so I have 4 little tendrils on the biggest one. And then we're coming in with our favorite. Fall crafting is not fall crafting without Spanish moss and all of the mess that comes with it. So I am just gluing the moss down all around the spindles, and then we're just going to attach the little bow. I had to finish this project off with my handy dandy lint roller because sometimes you cannot get Spanish moss off no matter how hard you shake it into the trash can. For my second project this week, we're going to paint some pumpkins, and I got a set. It was either 12 or 16 pumpkins off of Amazon. I will link them in the description box below, but that little white one I thought was too small, so I'm just going to use one that I had picked up at Dollar Tree. And we're going to paint these with Summer Crush and cake batter, some White Swan, Apothecary, and Skeleton Key. These are all like my favorite colors. And you can see this one, the one especially from Dollar Tree, you can see how it's the bumps from the styrofoam, right? So I want texture, so we're going to use some sea spray. And first up is to take all of the stems off. I typically don't reuse these stems. I'm not the most fond of them. I prefer to use other things. So we're going to remove those stems and get busy painting. I'm putting those popsicle sticks in there just so I have handles to hold on to while I'm painting. And I love these colors, so we're going to use the Chateau inlay, which I've only used a couple times, but it probably is my favorite because it has all of those same colors in it. So we're going to paint these pumpkins, and I'm mixing up, I've already painted Skeleton Key and Apothecary, so I am mixing Summer Crush, which is a beautiful orange, but I want to tone it down a little bit, so I'm going to mix in some cake batter with it, and then White Swan just to tone down the color a little bit. I just don't want that intense orange, and I'm going to add a little bit of sea spray to it, just like I said, for that texture. And you really can control how much you add based on, just how much texture you want. If it's too thick and clumpy, then you can just add a little bit more paint, maybe a little bit more water just to thin it out. It's really up to your preference. And as you can see, like, I didn't like the color. It was a little still too orange for me, so I ended up adding more yellow. I think I added more white until I was happy with the color. So each pumpkin got 2 coats of paint, and then after that thoroughly dried, DIY paint does need to be top coated. So I did apply a coat of Big Top, and then once that thoroughly dried the next day, I cut out some sections of the paint inlay. I spritzed it with water on the painted side, and then we're going to use Big Top to adhere or to put this paint inlay into. So I just painted a generous layer of Big Top where this inlay is going to go, and you can see as I lay it down, I did make some relief cuts because it has to go over the curved sections of the pumpkin, and I'm really just pressing it in because the paint inlay is just that. It is paint, and I want that paint to be pressed really well into the wet Big Top so that paint inlay can be transferred into that Big Top and onto the surface of the pumpkin. And I also use just a little wet wipe to really press the inlay down into the Big Top. And also I kind of just dabbed off the excess Big Top that I had that wasn't covered by the inlay. I just kind of dabbed it off a little bit with that wet wipe as well. I cannot speak today. When you use paint inlays with Big Top, you do have to be a little bit more careful. You can't let them dry as long as you would paint because they can definitely be harder to remove since it is actually a top coat. But you can tell when they've become a little more opaque, and then I just spritz it with water again, press it down, and then just peel them back. If you find that it is hard for the inlay to lift up, to peel up, then spritz it with water again and let it soak for a few more seconds, and then give it another try. The inlays are all off, and now it's time to seal it in because again, this is paint that needs to be sealed in. This is the first time that I am using Big Top. Usually I just spray it, but I decided to be brave, and so I just have a really super soft brush, and I am loading my brush up with Big Top and just using a very feather light touch because you don't want to reactivate the paint with the big top and cause it to smear. So just use a very, very light touch when you're applying the top coat over the inlays. I have used spindles for stems, I've used sticks for stems, but I've never used wine corks. So that's what I decided to use this time. And I'm just trimming down the edge of this one just so it fits down in the hole of that orangey pumpkin a little better. I'm gonna make it just a little bit bigger so I can have a nice tight fit in there and that little stem's not gonna fall out. I didn't want to make a hole big enough to fit the stem in for the big one, and so I decided, and I didn't want to, again, just rely on gluing it onto the top, so I actually decided to get a skewer, a wooden skewer, and I drilled a little tiny hole into the cork and then put the skewer down there, cut it to size, and then pushed it all the way down into the pumpkin just so it would give me a little bit more added security that it wouldn't fall off, and then added a dab of hot glue. Because these pumpkins are a little more fancy schmancy, I wanted to keep the tops a little more simple, and I just added more of our favorite Spanish moss. Before we sneak into the third and final project, I wanted to give you a sneak peek of Connie Lines and Designs from the Painted Photographer, the new release that is out today. This first one is the Gathering Cart in a multiple and a full sheet. Toil and Trouble. I love the little spider from the witch's hat. This little cutie is called Black Knight. Moving into Christmas, we have A Child is Born and Faithful Foundations. I love the music sheet background on this one. This little cute snowman is Winter Blues. He doesn't look too blue to me. He is just precious. And this is perfect for ornaments. This is a snowman ornament set and snowman collage. They're both perfect for ornaments or gift tags. Sweet little Charlie with Heaven's Wish. And she also comes in ornament set. And my favorite, because I love Nomies, Old Fashioned Wilson. Look how cute this little guy is. I just love him. And then wrapping it up is Midnight Snow. All of these are available today in my booth in Dahlonega, Georgia, and also on my website, sgvintagecrafts.com. So if there's something that you want to pick up for your fall and Christmas crafting, just hop on over and I'll be happy to send it to you. Okay, for my third and final project this week, we are using some styrofoam cones and some aluminum foil. I got a big pack of these cones off of Amazon as well, and I needed to cut some circle shapes that were larger than the base of these cones. So I just took a washer and kind of traced it around, and I ended up cutting out some larger circles as well. And I would recommend, if you decide to do a project like this, that you use heavy duty foil So I just took the cardboard and then poked a hole in the bottom of the cardboard. And before I decided to wrap the cone, I pulled some saran wrap right here and place it over the cone. This will come in very handy in just a few minutes, I promise. And then I just wrap the aluminum foil around the cone. So I'm just folding back the bottom of the foil around away from the bottom of the cone because I want to be able to grab the saran wrap there and pull out the cone like a little handle. See how handy that was? And now this cone will collapse, so I need to fill it full of more foil. So everything is wrapped in the foil now. It's time to move on to the next stage. And I have this roll of crafting moss. I actually picked up at Hobby Lobby. I did link some that I found on Amazon. This has an adhesive back, and you certainly don't have to have that because I used hot glue anyway. And the next time I buy this, I will not buy the stuff with the adhesive back because it also gums up the scissors. But I just folded a little circle in half. I just want to make a hole so it aligns with the hole that is in my cardboard. And then I just use some hot glue to glue it down. It's starting to take shape now, isn't it? You see where I'm going with this? Did you think I was going to be making Christmas trees? Now, geometry, math in general is not my strong suit. Never has been, never will be. I know there is probably an easier way to figure this out, but I don't know what it is, so I'm just kind of winging it. And you can see here, the great thing about using foil for these projects, like we're making, if you haven't figured it out yet, witches' hats, but it wasn't quite thick enough. I wanted it to be a little thicker, so I just kept adding foil to it and shaping it until I was happy with it. So I'm just trying to figure where exactly to cut it because, like I said, I'm sure there's a formula or some way to calculate it, but that's not who I am. So I'm just cutting out a big enough piece that is going to wrap around the cone as well as the bottom of the hat. I could have used just smaller pieces and pieced it together, but I didn't want to do that. I like the look of having just one big piece of moss that came down through the hat and wrapped around the bottom of the brim, and just have it all come together. if you're doing something like this and using like this moss fabric, be very careful because it is not solid. The hot glue does seep through, and I don't want anybody to burn their fingers. So please be very careful when you are gluing things like this together. As I'm working down the sides and around the bottom, I really want to try to make sure that as much of it is glued to the styrofoam or to the foil as possible. There are areas I can feel that aren't glued all the way down, and that affects it when I'm trying to shape it and bend it a little bit. The moss doesn't move with the foil because it's not firmly attached to it. So just make sure that it's glued down as best as you can get it. I have to mention too, I saw this on Pinterest. This was not my original idea, but I saw it, I fell in love with it. I've made carrots before using tinfoil, and so I thought that these would be super easy and turn out super cute, and I absolutely love it. I think this is my favorite project. You'll have to let me know if it is your favorite as well. Now, because this is not solid, like I said, how the glue, you can burn your fingers, there's also areas where you can see the foil. So I'm just taking little bits of moss and then gently gluing it down. I don't want to squish it because I don't want the glue to come up through and you see a big glob of dried glue on the top. That's kind of defeating the purpose. But now that it's foil and it's stuffed, so you can see like there's a little puffy part right there that didn't get completely glued down. But now that it's stuffed full of foil, I can shape it, I can bend it, and the moss will move with it. And I have a hole in the bottom, so I can move on to the next step. I'm pulling out some milk paint. This is in the color Creamy, and milk paint is a 1-to-1 mixture of powder paint and water, and you whisk it together really good for a couple of minutes. Let it sit for about 10 minutes. I've never used milk paint on terracotta, but that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna paint this little terracotta cup because we have to be able to display our witch hats. For the big cup, I wanted to be a little different, so this is the color Seaside by Fusion. I am just giving it one coat of blue paint, and then once this is dry, I came back in and did 2 coats of the milk paint and got some really yummy cracking and chipping on this terracotta pot so it exposed the blue paint underneath. I am now a stockist for Sweet Pickens milk paint, so you can check out my website, sgvintagecrafts.com, and I will be more than happy to ship you some milk paint and anything else that you see there that you might want. I wanted to add some weight to the bottom of the pot, so I just glued some nuts together, and then I have that old heavy washer that I'm also attaching to the bottom of the pot just to weight it, because that hat is pretty big, and with all the foil and the moss, I didn't want it to tip over, so I just wanted to add weight into the bottom of it. And then I just came in with some floral foam and stuffed it down into the bottom because, like I said, we have to display our hat. Now this is where it starts to get really cute and it all comes together. I just pulled some sticks from my yard, and remember we've got a hole in the bottom of the hat, and when I filled it full of foil, I also made sure that I had a hole in the middle of the foil and that it was all glued in there. And I just put some glue or some hot glue down in there, and I am just shoving that stick down into the foil as far as I can get it, and I even put a little more hot glue to help hold it. And then once that was secure, I cut off the end, and into the floral foam it went. I also weighted down the other two pots. I didn't want to take any chance because the base of the pot is narrow and they can be a little top heavy. I just wanted to make sure that they wouldn't topple over. So I added some Spanish moss to the top. I have some random little floral that I don't know what it is. They were just little floral picks, and I wanted some little colors, so I added them. It's not something you would find in a pumpkin patch, but I don't care. I thought they were cute. And then I finished them all off with these little, I think they're called Putka pods? I don't know, but they're super cute. Let me know, what do you think? Okay, there we are. It feels so good to be back to creating. I know these were my absolute favorite. I was freaking giddy after I finished these up. I absolutely love them. Please leave me a comment. Let me know which one was your favorite. And if you haven't already, I sure would appreciate a like, a subscribe. It really, really does help small channels like mine. And if you know of someone else that would appreciate my content, please feel free to share. And I want to thank you for joining me and sticking around for this week's projects. And until next time, take care.